In today's video, I'm going to look at the most famous and severe case of depression recorded in the Bible and answer the question, is depression sin, and can God help us with depression? This is Morning Meditations with me, Pastor Ryan Hayden of Bible Baptist Church. To hear more or find out more about our church, visit BibleBaptistMattoon.org. 1 Kings 19, Elijah is coming off an incredible high. In the chapter before, he stands alone against the king and 850 false prophets in front of all of Israel, and he literally calls down fire from heaven. Then he correctly predicts the imminent return of rain after a 3-year drought and miraculously runs a half marathon ahead of the king's chariot. Which is why chapter 19 is so strange. Because Elijah, the same man that stood alone with a bounty on his head for years, wilts like a piece of old lettuce at the first threat from Queen Jezebel. Then he runs as far as he can possibly run in a day, from the middle of Israel to the very bottom of Judah. Which brings us to verse 4, which says, "But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, 'It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers.'" Elijah, who is maybe the boldest and bravest man in the whole Bible, runs away for 2 days, and he falls down in a fit of acute depression, and he asks God to die. Which, by the way, is ironic, because if he wanted to die, he could have just stayed with Jezebel. And it's doubly ironic because he's one of 2 people in the Bible that didn't die. Elijah was depressed, extremely depressed. Now, what caused this? Probably many things. I'd say first and foremost, physical and emotional exhaustion definitely played a part. Extended loneliness couldn't have helped. Disappointment about the spiritual state of Israel, disillusionment about his own purpose, those definitely had something to do with it. And was it sinful? Probably a little. But I want you to notice what God did in the rest of the chapter. He tended first to Elijah's physical needs by feeding him and giving him something to drink. He gave Elijah the rest that he needed. He gave Elijah his word and his presence. He gave Elijah a job to do. What does this episode teach us? I think it teaches us that depression is a part of life. So many of God's greatest servants have struggled with depression. Moses dealt with it. Job dealt with it. David dealt with it. Even the Apostle Paul dealt with depression. My hero, Charles Spurgeon, had such acute depression, he was unable to minister for months at a time. I think it teaches us also that depression has both physical and spiritual causes. God dealt with both the physical and spiritual issues that Elijah was struggling with. But most of all, I want you to understand that God intends to help us through depression if we let him. It might last longer than we want it to, but if we let God, he will eventually strengthen us with his word and his spirit, and he'll put us back to work for him. If you're struggling with depression, let me pray for you. I've been there. Don't isolate yourself. Get around God's people. Get in church. Get in God's word. Get the rest and the physical causes taken care of, and then trust that God will help you through it.